Okay, guys, we'll go ahead and open and then hopefully Butch will just fall right in. We'll call this meeting to order for the Levelland City Council. So please join us for the pledge and prayer. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Councilmember Stewart, would you mind praying for us tonight?
Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity we have as a city to come together and to do the things that are in the best interest of our community. Lord, we just ask that you're with our first responders as they travel all around our city to keep us safe day and night. Lord, we just ask a special blessing upon them and their families as they do that job. Lord, we just ask that you're with us today and give us the wisdom to make the decisions that need to be made that will impact our community. Lord, these things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And I don't believe I have any statements by citizens. No statements. So no statements by citizens. So we will move on to item number 1, to consider and take necessary action on the opioid settlements with Purdue and the secondary manufacturers and authorize the city manager to execute any necessary documents.
Mayor and council member and guest, the city received notice last week from the Attorney General's office of the opioid settlement between Purdue and secondary manufacturers. One was originally due the 6th, and they moved it to the 30th. And then the other one was the 8th. This is a result of a settlement that the state made and a lot of other states made, and there's billions of dollars involved, and they're dividing it everywhere. There's also about 15 pages of authorized uses for this money. So even though it says there's no prescribed time to spend the funds that are allocated, no accounting requirements, no reporting requirements, there's no audit provision, they do have about 15 pages to say what you can and cannot use that for. Now, I will not be surprised if that list changes, because originally they said they could not tell us how much we would be receiving until everybody submitted their forms. And this weekend, they submitted a letter that said that we would be receiving about $119,000. So that number could change as time goes on. But we ask for approval for these 2 items from the Attorney General's office and authorize the city manager to execute any necessary documents.
And get money found.
Amen. I don't think there's a reason to say no. I just sure hope there's something in there we could do that would be so beneficial to the city with these funds and not super restrictive and wasteful because they've tied our hands. That's what I hope for.
Yep.
Got a lot of things we could do with that.
Initially, it looks like that the funds are all for education, training, prevention, various areas that are going to make it difficult.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that there will be some more guidance as time goes on that gives us a little bit more flexibility as these dollars.
And you would expect that, given that most cities are going to receive this, right? You would expect more guidance and rules. Well,
I move that we approve the opioid settlement with Purdue and the secondary manufacturers and authorize the city manager to execute any necessary documents.
a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. With that, none opposed, motion carries. At this time, we'll let the Planning and Zoning Commission call their meeting to order.
This planning and zoning meeting is now called to order.
Thank you. At this time, item number 2 is to hold a joint work session with the City Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission to discuss goals and objectives of a zoning ordinance diagnostic review presented by representatives of Friesen Nichols Incorporated.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Your representative for tonight, David Jones, project manager with Friesen Nichols. Abdul Ghosh, who is here the last couple of joint work sessions, is online listening in. Won't be speaking tonight, but is listening and taking notes to our conversation this evening. So this is our 3rd joint workshop. We're starting to get into the nitty gritty of the zoning ordinance. We've had a substantial portion of the draft completed. My understanding is that you all have had a couple of weeks to review the draft. So happy to get into any technical details that we want to get into tonight. My presentation is going to be fairly high level, talking about how the draft ties back into the diagnostic and the themes that we identified for success with this zoning ordinance. So I'll be going through those, but you're welcome to stop me at any time and ask any questions that you have. This is intended to be an open dialogue as before, but do want to make sure we cover some of the high points. So tonight we'll be going through mostly module one, doing an orientation on module one. We'll be introducing the zoning overlays that we talked about with the diagnostic report, and that'll set up future conversations about module two and module three. And then we'll talk about some next steps. So 5 key topics for the discussion tonight. State law changes that we want to incorporate, how we're dealing with cumulative zoning, our key gateway standards that'll get into our zoning overlay section, housing options, and then wanted to touch a little bit on public outreach. So the first one, probably the most straightforward change, the zoning ordinance as it stands today, substantially about 45 years old. So a lot of state law changes have happened since then. So rather than go into each of those individually, we're looking at this through the standpoint of minimizing your legal vulnerability, making sure that if this ordinance is challenged, that it stands up legally, that it follows the law as it's written today. And then it's also easy to amend in the future because state law has been a moving target the past several sessions. Making sure that it's enforceable, making sure that all our terms align, and making sure that as you read the ordinance, you don't have to have a law degree or a planning degree in order to comprehend what you're reading. Really, our baseline that we're trying for is a ninth grade level that you can comprehend whatever section you're in with the ordinance, making it clear, making sure that where we can, we're reinforcing the text with tables and with diagrams so that it's easy to follow along. Adding in a couple of clauses, such as a severability clause that says if there's one piece of the zoning ordinance that for some reason gets invalidated, you don't have to throw out the whole thing. The rest of it stands. And then making sure that as city staff is going out into the field and actually enforcing, and better way of putting that is communicating the goals of the zoning ordinance, that's backed up in the text, and there's not a lot of time spent on interpretation and difference of opinion. So again, won't go through these in too much depth, but this has been updated to be compliant with the bills that were passed at the last session, at the 89th session. SB 840 and SB 15, some of those bigger city bills missed y'all, but there are a couple other bills that we caught and captured, like HB 12 and HB 2464. So this is compliant with many of those statutes that went into effect on September 1st, although 2464 went into effect this summer. So that being said, cumulative zoning is kind of one of the meatier topics that was identified when looking at the zoning ordinance and when developing the diagnostic. So again, cumulative zoning, just as you get more intense in your zoning districts, think going from single family residential to multifamily to commercial, all of the uses allowed in the less intense districts are also allowed in the more intense districts. A few exceptions, but generally speaking, that's how the current ordinance works. So last time we discussed possible approaches to dealing with that. One might be to do a city initiated rezoning of certain areas. One might be to have certain clauses within the zoning ordinance that says if you have a conforming use today, you can keep it. But if no conforming use has been established, for instance, a house, if a residential use has not been established on a lot that's zoned B, then that's a commercial lot rather than a residential lot. In examining the way that the B district in particular has developed, the blocks that are predominantly residential, would stay residential essentially, and the blocks that are predominantly commercial would stay commercial under this approach. They would still be zoned with that commercial designation, but there would be language now in the code that staff could point to that says those are legal allowed uses. And if that use was to go away and you're trying to get a title policy on that property, you're trying to get it insured, then there's a legal conforming avenue for you to rebuild that home on that lot. Same with the business. So there's the text that governs the B2 district that again addresses that cumulative zoning piece. Would not mean necessarily that the city couldn't come along at some later point and do a city initiated zoning action that would further solidify that, but this is kind of a middle ground approach in order to provide for people. So this is a table also found within the zoning ordinance draft that shows our current zoning districts. They're labeled previous, but that's just because as you're reading the ordinance, we want you to think of previous. The current zoning districts are on the left, and your proposed zoning districts, it says adopted, but your proposed zoning districts that are on the right. So we've got a couple of instances where we've consolidated districts in the case of multifamily and in our duplex and two family. And then we've added a couple of districts, namely our agriculture district, manufactured housing district. So the purpose behind those two is for one, bona fide agricultural activities to take place legally in a defined district, but also as a way to respond to some development trends that we've seen over the past several years in terms of agritourism, barn dominiums, even some types of non-permanent development. Let's call it like RV parks and any home parks. Manufactured housing districts would identify specific areas within the city that have already been developed as manufactured home parks. In those areas that are currently zoned, your SF1, where there are manufactured homes currently, those would become non-conforming. So they'd be allowed to maintain that home there, but once that home leaves that lot, then it can only be a stick-built, site-built home from that point forward if it's zoned SF1. So that would be a district that would not only be identified with existing manufactured home developments, it would be an available district if somebody wanted to come along and rezone to manufactured home district. So council would have the ability to decide whether or not further areas should be designated as MH. Going down the list to the bottom there, you see the special districts and overlays. So we have three, and I'll show a map of those on the next slides. Avenue H overlay, the central core overlay, which is essentially downtown, going east over to College Street, which also gets its own overlay from 114 down to South Plains College. I lied. I have one more slide. But this just covers some of the dimensional differences. So if we look at our single family residential districts, we've got a 7,000 square foot district, and then we've got a smaller district that has a 3,000 square foot single family or duplex lot, and then you could go down to a 2,000 for townhome or single family attached. We'll get more into the housing variety and options component, but this is intended to respond to that issue. There's also some flexibility in the setbacks. One of the feedback items that we receive from the local development community is that some of the setbacks are a little too rigid. That's forcing developers into situations where there's some modifications that need to be made to the zoning. So we've worked that in now currently so that as long as you're maintaining an adequate setback, from a building code standpoint, then you have the ability to shift that house on the lot. The upside of that is that you would probably get more driveway space, which means you're not hanging out over the sidewalk.
One thing that I looked at on talking about those setbacks, SF1 is a 25-foot front setback versus an SF2 is a 10, mobile home is a 15, manufacturer's 20, B1's 20. why are we pushing those so much further back? Because I know that was one of our issues in one of our additions was that setback being so much further.
The 25 foot is basically, the intent is to allow for back cars within the driveway. So
We talked about that overlay would be a little bit movable or a little bit kind of a moving target there. I know in that one addition specifically, those builders, that was one of their concerns. And right now we've only got 4 homes built in that addition. But you really look at maybe easing that up maybe to 20 foot or so.
Mm-hmm. But we can definitely make it 20 foot, and that's within what I would say is a normal range. A consideration to possibly keep in mind is the garage setback. So in some cases, you'll have a building setback that is 20 feet, but maybe the face of the garage sits back a little bit further. That doesn't allow for quite as much design flexibility. So builders tend not to like that. They'd rather have one setback that they're working with. But a 20-foot setback is certainly
That is definitely something
acceptable too.
told to us that we've been looking at trying to get changed because we need that addition to take off.
Yeah, we can definitely make that 20. Any other thoughts or comments on the dimensional standards?
So what is SF1 and SF2? You got a minimum lot area of 7,000 square feet. And then you got a minimum lot area of 3,000. 3,000 between those is a lot. In between those two.
So that would be your 2 single family districts, your one and your SF2. We also have introduced a planned development district, which would provide the potential for a middle ground between those two. That's something that the city doesn't have right now, the ability to create a custom zoning district. And it's worded in such a way that it's not just intended to be a workaround to the zoning requirements. There needs to be some sort of benefit to the city, such as additional park space or housing type that the zoning ordinance maybe doesn't contemplate. So we can certainly look at creating a zoning district that's by right in between those two, and is 4,000 or 5,000 square feet. We were trying to avoid creating too many new zoning districts beyond what's already there. But certainly we can look at that.
The biggest change there is the width of the lot. In that 4,000 to 7,000 square feet. One of them is a 50-foot lot, and the other ones are 70-foot minimum.
Correct.
And if it's rear entry on the SF2, then it goes down to 40 foot.
That's right.
Which would be more like townhomes, Eli? Is that kind of what the thought behind that is?
Yeah, probably. Townhomes are
Okay.
400 square foot. I mean, that's more understandable because the townhomes are all attached together, right? So
They're on zero.
You have a 40-foot lot with a garage in the front, and the front of the home tends to be all garage too, from a design consideration. But certainly we can introduce a district that's say 5,000 square feet and 60 foot in width, 60 to 55 foot in width to have that middle option.
I wanted to point that out so P&Z and council could look at this because that's a big difference, right, between those two pieces.
Does everybody think that middle district's what we need?
That would
I mean,
just
we need
be,
a
I think how
middle
that really
point.
come into effect, have that middle district is for new districts, because our existing districts already, their boundaries are already set, they're already platted, unless you went through and replatted an entire set.
And unless council determined that they wanted to change those districts to the different, because one of the functions of the zoning ordinance is to establish that districts that are zoned a certain way now will now be considered a different type of district or an equivalent type of district. So this chart, as it appears within the zoning ordinance, lets you know if you're SF1 now, you'll be SF1 under this zoning ordinance, SF2, and so on. So if we were to create a new zoning district between SF1 and SF2, then unless we assigned it to one of those existing districts,
Right.
then it would be something that would be new going forward.
And forgive me because I didn't research to find out. In the SF2s, I think, was that where we allowed carports? Or were there some SF1 areas that it was allowable?
There are some SF1 locations where it's allowed. So I know Country Club doesn't allow them, Paxton, like the Kaufman, it's allowed.
Right.
That's right.
How does that fit into this chart? Those are just some special things on those areas?
Well, as far as the carports go, if I understand this right, so like right now, we have an ordinance that we worked on not too long ago that would allow basically in any district except for certain areas of SF1. And the way this is written now would essentially allow it in those SF1 districts that we don't allow it right now. Right?
We don't want them in, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So we need to incorporate that language from
Yes,
the,
sir.
from the
Yeah,
existing ordinance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we need to get that language to you or do you already have that?
I'll get that to you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we can work on incorporating that.
There's some other requirements too. What it has to have, dimensions, the approved surface, having 3 sides open, things like that.
Mhm.
Without getting too into
Yeah, that will likely be folded in within the accessory building standards, which I know we're working on finalizing what those would look like.
it.
Because I think we still want to keep them excluded from the more restrictive
Right.
areas.
Right.
But still the ones that we've identified that they're already carports, making it easier on you guys, not having to have
Mhm.
all these exceptions every time somebody wants to
I
carport.
don't want to go backwards.
No,
Right.
no. We hashed that one out.
Eli doesn't want to go backwards.
So is that what y'all would like to see as a district in between SF1 and SF2 as an option?
What would be the benefits, the pros and cons of doing that?
Well, if somebody wanted to rezone from SF1 because, well, they want to do something smaller than 7,000 square foot lots, but there was some hesitancy to go all the way down to 3,000 square feet, then that would provide a middle option.
What would, like our garden home lots, how many square feet would that be? Because those are in SF1. What size? Are they, they're
Yeah.
50 or are they 70-foot lots? Eli, do you know off the top of your head?
That wide.
I'm thinking they're
Like
like
the ones on Hickory or something?
Yeah.
For a visual example.
Well,
Kansas and Buffalo.
Flint, those houses are a lot smaller than the ones like Poplar that you just sold.
Yes.
That's huge.
Those are huge.
It's like 2,700 square foot.
Yeah, Kansas. and-
Yeah,
But some of those Hickory are just, 1,500 square feet,
yeah,
something like
14,
that,
15.
right?
Mhm.
Those are the ones on the east side of town.
On the east side of the,
Yeah,
on
Some of
the
our
south side of the
restrictive
road.
neighborhoods.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we would contemplate doing those under the SF2. That's intended to be kind of the most flexible.
Yeah, but I don't
Districts.
to change our Ridgecrest to SF2 and have all of those standards on that. That's our most restrictive neighborhood,
Yeah.
our higher end neighborhood. And I don't think we want SF2 standards set at that level. I don't.
And that's all SF1.
All of that is. But you have those garden home lots that are 0 lot lines.
Those are, looking at one right now, 48 feet, and what one shows is 48 by 120.
And that's a need that we have. I'm no realtor. There's a lot in the room, but townhomes and garden homes sell quickly in Levelland.
It's around
So,
5,000.
if we had somebody say they wanted to build more, we would be as a community and a city jumping on that.
Mhm.
But like this in single family too, that's just saying it's the minimum, right? They can go that small, not that they have to, right?
Correct. They could go
That
larger.
just allows for them to be able to build more in an area or in the development, right? Give them that option to.
Yeah, it's really a transition district between your 7,000 square foot lots and
Right.
multifamily.
They could go down that small, but they don't necessarily have to.
But it wouldn't make that an SF2 neighborhood.
Not under the equivalency. So if it's single family 1 today, it would remain single family 1.
But on a 50-foot lot, is a 50-foot lot allowed in an SF1 neighborhood?
As it's written currently, no, it would have to be a minimum 70. So we would
need to figure that with those 0 lot line garden home, because those pop up in our most restrictive areas.
And there's some land over there that could be developed.
Is it already platted?
Some of it, that's on the south
Above me.
side,
It's above me. If you're talking about the south side of Cactus, I would say no.
south side of Hickory is.
Yeah.
That'd be Cactus Elementary.
All that area, like where.
Yes or no?
Those 4 new homes are at, all that empty land.
Yeah, but even over there where that circle pivots at over behind the nursing home, part of that is platted, and it is platted to look exactly like Aransas and all of that. It's farmland now, but some of that's already platted.
Yeah, if it's already platted, then they're vested with those lots.
I still want to make it hard on a developer that wants to come in and put in garden homes and go, well, no, you can't. You got to be a 70-foot lot.
Yeah, I'm thinking we would want to, if we want to leave it SF1, we would need to have some language within the zoning ordinance that if it's already been platted,
Right.
they can.
Well, even if it's not
0 lot line,
somebody's coming in wanting to put in garden homes.
then we would allow it by right.
Right.
Would that be the preference?
But even if it's a new development, you know what?
Right.
Okay.
But if it's platted, it's already.
If it's already platted, you're
Yeah.
grandfathered in there more or less.
Yeah, there's not as much as that we can do, but yeah, we would want to specify that if it's new and hasn't been platted under SF1, they could do garden homes. So we can
That would
come
be
up
the
with.
exception. I wouldn't want to see tiny homes over there by any means, but for those higher end garden homes, for sure, we want to make sure they're allowed. Don't you guys think?
Yes. What about tiny homes? Again,
Not from SF1 at all.
no. I mean, if a person wants to buy a whole section of land out here, and put a tiny home, just strictly tiny home. What do they have to do with that?
So going back to the ag district, that's really where we would envision that occurring. So that it's got a minimum lot size. I believe it's 5 acres, as we have it written.
That's like that lot on Sherman and Maple. It's got that one big lot, it's just nothing there, period. There's no water, no electricity, no sewers. Somebody wants to come in and put in a tiny home lot there.
Trying to find.
Under this, they would have to.
Well, I mean, that's,
It's the one that we used for.
if they have been platted, like if somebody wants to develop that, then
Right?
Larry,
gonna
circling that.
take how they want it done, right?
They would have to rezone it to ag.
Filling that.
There's no ag currently.
I don't want tiny homes then.
And plat it, yeah.
Got it.
To answer your question, they would have to rezone it to ag under this proposal before they could pull a permit for a tiny home.
My vision for that lot would sure not be tiny homes. I don't get to pick, but I would love to see starter homes there. I would love to see duplexes. I mean, there's just so
Awesome. There we go.
garden homes, a mix of them all. You know how they'll develop
Yeah.
a neighborhood with the duplexes on the ends or that are above me. I'm not a planner or developer, but I mean, there's just,
That's really what this SF2 is envisioned to do, is to allow that and a blend of different home sizes, price points, ownership structures.
affordable housing could be there and be amazing, I think.
Pete, let's follow up your deal. Because for a long time, one of the biggest concerns within cities was manufactured homes and then mobile homes.
Right.
Tiny homes has kind of become the new little thing that's getting fit in there. Is there, David, have you seen a definition out there that's kind of explaining what a tiny home is? Because I think we need to make sure we account for that as well, that someone doesn't go in to an ag district and say, we'll build a tiny home. Oh, wait, I'm going to add in 10 of them. And then we got these little pockets of little tiny homes, which some people, that's their new lifestyle. They like that little, lack better word, a commune where everybody's kind of in there together. But I think we need to think about how we would
It's such a visual
want to manage
for
that.
our community, that road.
Because I could see some people are just like, this is all I want nowadays, and 2, this is all I can. Of course, I've seen some tiny homes are even kind of ridiculous in price. Some of these people are really going crazy,
Yes.
what they look like.
It's just like barn dominium.
But in
They were super
manufacturing-
cheap when they first started.
And where manufactured homes are allowed, things. I could see maybe them fitting in there better.
So those tiny homes, are they a bedroom and?
Under 500 square feet, I think 499 is what's considered tiny home in them.
It's like a little efficiency pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's 400
So right now.
for a true tiny home.
definition says 600 in the.
600 square feet, that's the way. Reason Nickel comes.
Yeah,
But David,
under it wouldn't have to.
hey, it was two bedroom if they wanted, right? Is that,
If you count the loft as a second
Oh.
bedroom.
gotcha.
So y'all
I
do
don't
have
think
it
you're
in
supposed to
here.
do that, but
In order to become a bedroom, you have to have a closet.
yeah.
And that doesn't mean, I was about to say, it doesn't mean
Yeah,
a
Ryan's saying
standing
that.
closet,
I don't know if you have to be able to stand up.
right?
Is FHA?
We should find out. Do you have to be able to stand up to count a bedroom? Sure. As long as you can lay in there, it don't matter.
There's a minimum.
Like,
I,
livable space for a bedroom, living room, and all that. So even using that, you can get away with a very, very small home. Oh, 600 square feet is bigger than what code would allow.
With the desire to
Minimum.
need to make that smaller or.
At one time we had,
I only have like a lot.
this sign was our minimum.
We've never had nothing set, but
We haven't ever had anything.
That's so tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that may be a disconnect between,
and they're only allowed by
and
conditional
that's
use.
really just referring to how they're set up with
They have
water, sewer,
class of
electrical,
class of two.
the minimum amount of habitable space that's required.
They're only allowed by
We can-
conditional
We
use.
can go above that.
Ordinance, they're permitted.
You also told me to read it.
Oh, well, that's,
No, they're permitted. You can look on page 90.
Maybe y'all, this is my wheelhouse.
Permitted in SF1, SF2.
Tiny home is permitted in an FF1.
oh, okay.
MR and MF.
Yeah.
Well, then that's a discrepancy between there.
I would sure want to take that out.
I confine those to the ag district
I don't know about necessarily ag districts. I wouldn't mind them in mobile home districts too, but
and MH.
Hard for me to think of them in an ag district because we don't have that and I'm not familiar with it.
Be fine in a mobile home for sure. I mean,
Wasn't there one in the Alamo Trailer Park at one time?
there's some out at Killinghams at Opie-Dyke and they fit in well.
Right.
There's a couple that are popped around town. We have a couple in town.
tiny homes?
maintained well and stuff. It doesn't, I mean, you can't even really.
One on, a small one on, well, I guess it's tiny home on Pecan.
Yeah,
The
pecan.
one they moved in there.
And they treated it as a manufactured home. That's how it is in the.
Was it treated that way because we didn't know what else to do?
Put my tiny home next to the house.
Yeah.
It worked, yeah.
So we just, everybody needs to probably put a flag by that and something to think about and see where we want it to land and how we want to.
But David, right now, if a house, you're saying, I mean, it's allowed in SF1. And if a house on Tech burns down to the ground and the lot is vacant, someone could go in with a tiny home.
A 600
In the
square
new,
foot.
in the new regulations.
I don't like that. If I'm the adjoining neighbors, that's not my hope for the neighborhood.
So
How many tiny homes would go on a lot?
Oh,
Just,
yeah,
you still only have one unless you had a guard or a
still.
nurse type person that could stay in a
Do y'all
accessory
agree?
dwelling. You
Does
could,
planning and zoning agree? I mean, trying to protect that neighborhood from,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't want a tiny home next to mine,
right,
sure. 'Cause I want the value of my property to continue to
right.
rise for sure. So no.
We don't want to be that one street with that. And then, yeah, I guess.
Tiny home, once it's brought in, it has to be on a secure foundation.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Yes,
it's still
Shelby,
gonna, if it's sitting beside 202 Tech Drive, 202 Tech Drive's property value is gonna plummet, even if it is
Oh, yeah.
fixated to the foundation.
Page 90 says a tiny home
It's
shall
not
be
a
secured
brick home.
fixed to a permanent foundation, but I agree with
It's not,
Jamie said.
it's not bricked, it's not the size of Tech Drive, the whole Tech Drive value is gonna plummet.
It's just a visual oddity.
why are y'all picking on us on Tech Drive?
I'm sorry. I'll get a different.
He said Tech and so I threw out who lives at 202 Tech?
Nobody, because there's not a 202 tech.
Oh, well, let's see, I was not making fun of her.
Can I ask a question?
1,000 blocks, yes.
Is there a minimum home size that feels comfortable? 600.
Currently, don't we have like small 1,500 square foot as a minimum? We don't have any.
Or is it just, it's not set, it's not written, it's just culturally accepted, right?
Sure.
We thought we had.
Talking about a size of a tiny home?
We're talking about like a
No,
home being built in.
Yeah, tiny home is 600 the way it's written.
To say if I down in a SF1, currently you could go build a 900 square feet house there on this giant residential
Oh, see, I didn't know
Holly
that.
Heights lot. Right,
Yeah.
a lot to mow.
I didn't know that. I was in,
I've seen a lot of
like,
development
my neighborhood had
Yes.
been size because
100 or bigger.
subdivision
Yes,
standard, you can hire your own builder, but it has to be
yes,
size or bigger.
But the city does not.
That's how I thought it was.
right.
Right.
Restrictions are difficult to enforce anyway.
Us too, but we're.
That is something we can still regulate through the zoning ordinance, though, is the minimum house.
I don't know what that number is, but
I'd
we
like to
need
do a little
something.
research and find out.
But I also think it would kind of depend on the neighborhood. Like you're not, if Holly Heights is 1,800 square foot, you're not going to want that over at Crockett Circle. I mean, I feel like it differs by neighborhood, but 1,800 is not going to fit on Pecan.
And you want that variety
Yeah, everybody needs.
where.
Yeah, we need
Size
different.
purposes, family sizes.
Yeah, we don't have no requirements
But
for,
what are you supposed to do? Go street by street and say this street, you can't do that. There's no
Maybe this gets back to our third SF
table.
district. There's a need to, if we want, so I'll just throw out a number. If we want to do 1,500 square foot minimum for SF1, we have an SF, we call SF2, SF3 now, and we have an SF2 that has a 1,200 square foot minimum house side or a 1,000. Does that feel comfortable? Or do we want to?
Me,
We want to look
does
at,
feel comfortable, but Eli, how difficult will that be on your department by throwing in that third? Especially in a community that we've just got 2 residential SFs, single family residential. What's that going to do to you? Because I don't want to make it harder on you. We want to.
it's not that it's gonna just, it's not making it harder. I mean, it's just having to deal with another district, right, so to speak, but. I mean,
assuming we'd be creating a district that doesn't apply anywhere in the city until you zone it that way. So it'd be available for somebody to develop under if they change the zoning.
Yeah, but that was my next question was, we don't have any areas that would meet that, and you don't want to piecemeal and make it look like this one, you know, that's one of the things we tried to get away from, some of that. I don't know what's the best answer there. You're the expert.
We can come back with some information that kind of looks at your neighboring cities, like the table that we did and the landscaping regulation.
Same issues.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably more common than not that a community of level land size would have 3 SF zoning districts. They're typically 7, somewhere around 6, 5, and then 4,000 minimum lot size. There's a lot more variability when it comes to minimum home size. It would be difficult to go over 1,500 square feet, generally speaking, because you're getting more into the range of requiring a minimum of 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms. Starts to get to be a bigger house. So that's why I ask if there was a number anybody had in mind, that if 1,000 square foot house was built next door, you know, does that feel a little too small?
But I think 1,000 in an SF1 is a little small, but I think 1,500 square foot is not necessarily too small. But if you would, yeah, check what our neighboring communities look like.
Especially because some of those SF1 lots are so wide and large and in level land.
It doesn't look right proportionally.
So it would look even smaller,
Yeah.
but you have to put a number somewhere.
Well, like some of those over close to you is it Indiana or one of those, some of the side setbacks are 15 foot
Yeah.
between, on this one and 15 on that. It seems like you got 20 or 30 feet between the houses.
Yeah, half of Indiana is like, so me and my neighbor have a huge gap between us, but me and this side neighbor, we're like on top of each other. So I don't know how that happened. Just how they built it.
And then for tiny home,
I like them.
comfortable with 600, but only in the manufactured home district, which is our new district that we've created.
Yes.
Okay.
Do we need an ag district?
Traditionally, most cities have an ag district that if you, which we can't do this anymore. If you annex something in, that traditionally came in as ag until you figured out how they were going to develop it or what they were going to do.
Okay.
But kind of a transition zone that sits there until they say, here's what we're going to do.
And would that fit like if someone wanted to develop the 1 to the 3 acre lots, you know, that they could do those kind of things? Would that fall under the ag district?
It would allow for large lot residential.
Large lot, but no agriculture convenient. Yeah, that's where I'm going.
Well, if you had a whole, if somebody had a development and wanted it in the city limits, how could you do that if it was, you know, a horse trade out there?
So you're asking, would it allow for actual agricultural activities? Yes,
Okay.
as written.
But
I'm
you
new to
can rule
that.
out pigs and.
Unsightly.
That neighbor, that
No, you can't
Bart,
Can't.
Can't you?
because of the latest farm legislation that was passed by.
oh, so it's new. I was gonna say, because Barton Farms, that whole new area out there, when I bought that lot, said no pigs unless,
But that'd be a deed
oh
restriction,
yeah,
right?
that's, yeah.
Which is.
Unless it was a 4-H or FFA pig, then I could have one. I just couldn't go buy one.
No commercial.
We'll need to double check that, but that new farm legislation basically is anything that's agriculture related business, you cannot prohibit. That's listed of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so we already have criteria right for livestock that it can't be within 200 feet of a residential dwelling. So it's not necessarily prohibited altogether, right? It's allowed. It just can't be within 200 feet of a residential dwelling. And it also, the way it reads now, it's only allowed in industrial. That's the way the ordinance reads now.
And I don't know if we can continue that too, if it's setback now. That's something we'd really need to look at. Freaking hogs, that's created some challenges in other cities.
Chicken people, isn't it? That's what happened. Them chicken people.
No, the chickens was a different issue. Let some entertainment at legislature go in for the chicken debate.
Yeah, I'm not going.
Usually how many roosters can support how many chickens, and it's beyond entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many consecutive years that's gone on now that's
Mm-hmm.
introduced.
Probably on the fifth
Yeah.
or sixth session.
That's what I was thinking.
Oh,
Okay. Anything else we want to discuss on dimensional standards?
my biggest questions.
Back to tiny homes.
Tiny homes, thank you. What size lot be adequate for tiny homes?
Well,
It's-
if we're going to M8, then it would be the same size as a standard MH lot, which I don't have off the top of my head.
I have a, are you planning to bring some tiny homes to town?
Nope.
I'll find you the land.
Okay.
Oh,
Just curious. I just thought maybe we have some land.
About 7,000 square feet
7,000 square
be
feet.
the minimum.
Which is
On the lookout.
for a tiny home.
Yes.
I agree. I think that looks like pee on it. I mean,
so that's 7,000 is a minimum in a home.
Yes.
So because it's specific to manufactured home, that's how it's written.
page is that mine?
But we could revise that for a tiny home, but they could be the same size. Manufactured home could be 600 square foot. And a tiny home could be 600 square foot.
Are lots in Old Town, those 50-foot lots over there, what's the depth of the?
Some of them are really deep,
Yes.
like 150, 60, even longer.
Some of them are 100-foot deep too, though, right? So that's a 5,000 square foot lot. If we have it in Old Town and you can't put a manufactured home on it because it's too small of a lot, because 7,000 is my minimum for a manufactured home.
So
Am I reading that right?
any lot that,
Is that
you
just in the manufactured district? That's just manufactured district, right?
Yeah.
Are we going to do it to where they can't put a manufactured home on those lots in Old Town?
Correct. So going back to the purpose of the manufactured home districts is to create a set aside area for manufactured home developments. If you have one currently, you can keep it. But if it goes away for whatever reason, then you would have to do it in a manufactured home district.
Okay, let's go back to tiny home of what we're gonna do with that. 600 square foot tiny home on a 7,000 square foot lot is gonna look completely
agree.
out of place.
Don't do it.
You had
Kidding. I think tiny homes are,
A garage,
Uh-huh.
really a detached garage.
That's got.
Yeah.
Detached and it's an accessory.
Because it's brought in, the home is brought in as a trailer. Yeah.
I just don't know where that
Right now,
answer
currently,
is.
Eli, we allow manufactured homes in SF2 in Old Town. Is where I'm talking about, in those lots where we're tearing those houses down and they're 50-foot lots and no one's going to come in there and build it. If we set it where we can't put a manufactured home on there, we're going to have an empty lot forever that somebody's got to mow weeds on, and we're going to constantly be messing with that.
Or we encourage a developer to come in and build something else.
We can find a developer that's going to come in on a 50-foot lot.
Reason why you don't have that developer wanting to build that home, because he doesn't want to build a home or build 4 or 5 of them in there and then somebody come in and slap in a manufactured home right beside him.
That's right.
That's the hesitation. You know, when our regulations allow for that to occur, you're not going to make that investment.
Right. I just look at a lot of those areas over there, and I'm not picking on Old Town. I'm just looking at the condition of a lot of those homes.
That's where we need our
Yeah,
infill.
right.
I mean,
It's going to get a builder.
nobody's picking on it. We're trying to make it better.
That's how we protect it by saying,
You need to find a builder that's going to be willing to come in and build one that's not a big fancy, a small fancy brick home. I mean, there are houses that are still not bricked that are nice but nobody's going
keep
to.
steering us away from tiny homes. We got to go back and address that issue. Then you can go wherever rabbit trail
You do not need
goes, sir. So
a teeny tiny house.
And then,
instead of-
So right now I've got manufactured home district is the only place we'll allow tiny homes, but reduce that minimum lot size requirement from 7,000 to something more like 3,000.
For a tiny home and
Maybe a 600. Yeah. So typically probably the right proportions, let's say it's about 60 to 40% of the lot is taken up by a home. Of course, you can't see the backyard always. So we can reduce that further, but 3,000.
I wouldn't want to go any lower than
3,000
to 5,000 square foot. Because a 50-foot lot by 100-foot depth would be I think of some of those. I'm just thinking of what existing lots we have. Some of those are about that.
So in theory, if someone wanted to rezone to manufactured home district, and council approved it, then that would mean they could put a tiny home.
In a manufactured.
If it's 3,000 square feet.
In a manufactured home district.
If they rezoned to manufactured home.
Okay.
I wouldn't be opposed.
you're willing to allow a 600 square foot home on a 7,000 square foot lot?
No,
3,000.
We're doing
3,000.
3 to 5,000 square foot
5,000
instead
square foot.
in manufactured home
Good manufactured.
district.
Are we creating an exception within the manufactured home district?
So if you're doing a manufactured home in the district currently, it says 7,000. But a single wide manufactured home, that's not much bigger than a tiny home.
A 10 by 60 manufactured single wide.
Is that the standard dimensions?
Yes.
Single wide?
40?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, you're looking at 10 to maybe 12. What's the size on them, Roger, on a single wide?
Single wide now is 14.
Are they
14, yeah.
Some of the older.
But it's an older one.
Well, yeah, the 14 is pretty standard.
50 to 60 foot's the
14 by 70 is pretty close.
Maybe 800.
but still, that's pretty close to what that tiny home's going to be. So
Yeah, visually.
and again, putting that on a 7,000 square foot house lot, unless you're turning them, making them turn sideways only.
Not gonna look too bad.
If they're turned,
No, this way, yeah.
but if they're stuck in there,
So we limit, right, well, yeah. 'Cause we make them.
we create a tiny home district, even though we don't have one. If a developer wants to come in and put a tiny home district and put those on 3,000 square foot lots.
Or do you can create a conditional use that if they come in, you have a little bit more say so in the process?
Yeah, I'd like more say so in the process. But I don't want to be caught unprepared either.
Because proposed regulation says each dwelling unit must be on a separate platted lot. You're gonna have one on there. Then what are we gonna do when the guy comes in and says, I don't need a 7,000 square, I want to subdivide this? And that's what we're gonna find ourselves into, that, you know, my 600 square foot house, this is where I'm at.
You have to take, especially if they want to put in a carport next to the tiny home.
For all of those lots across the residential lots, all 7,000, what were there were one of those that was smaller, wasn't it?
The SF2 is a
3,000.
yeah.
Where manufactured lots have to be on a larger lot than an SF2 home.
Unless we go to 3,000 for MH.
Do we leave that design up in a manufactured zone to whoever the developer is, whether they're going to be long ways or crossways with the street?
Usually it's up to the developer and how they lay out the
Light it out.
lots. Property.
As long as they fit within setbacks.
Because if they run them long ways on the lot, of course, you can be on a wider lot and still look attractive and not be horrible looking. But if it's a narrower lot, you're going to have to run them.
And they're probably gonna run as narrow lots as they can so they can get more of them in there.
Even that doesn't, as long as it doesn't look terrible.
Right.
There design standards that we can incorporate to, some of which are in the draft. You have to have skirting, you have to have an entryway, essentially.
On the surface driveway.
There's no landscaping minimums, is there?
There's general landscaping minimums that we're introducing across the city that would apply.
And we need to write our,
Residential?
Gotcha.
and your tiny home definition does not say it's a minimum of 600. It says 600 or less. And so you could put a 400 square foot home there if you want. You can continue to go smaller. It doesn't say it.
10,000 square foot
Yeah.
lot. Can you imagine this
As long
little?
as it meets the living area,
That's
Dying.
anchor down.
We don't have a living in. What do you mean it means?
that would be controlled by the building code.
You can get away with something really small if you only use the building code, like really small, like 300 square foot.
Have to have a bathroom, a kitchen.
And there was legislation
It
that
can all be combined.
didn't pass that
It's
would
coming
have,
back.
would have taken away the city's ability to
That's it.
not use the building code to.
Deep. Bringing it back.
So
But you can.
brother.
That's right.
So
Let us look at this as staff and come back to y'all on some recommendations. We know we need to look at this. We'll see what other cities.
The minimum in those areas like SF2s, when we were talking about those, not letting a manufactured home be in there, what about a ready built in those?
you have to allow those. If it's
Because that was one of the
it's an industrialized home.
that is some of those smaller lots over there. If we can't get builders to come over and build, can we find a ready built manufacturer that's building, say, sitting there in Lubbock and then bring that house over? I want to make sure that we.
Yeah, it's, So the homes that come in sections and they're assembled on site, 3D printed homes, kit homes, a lot of that is covered by the occupations code, or the building code. Specifically, if you allow a site built home somewhere, you have to allow a
Ready built.
industrialized home, yeah, or ready built home. So that's one of the state law changes that.
As we're struggling trying to find builders to be over here, that was one of the things is there's a couple of ready built manufacturers in Lubbock. It's, okay, could y'all build the house and just bring it over? Because all your subs are right here. I get that, but how could we do that?
What kind of building standards do the tiny homes have to have?
There's so it's referenced in the draft, but I believe it's Appendix Q of the International Residential Code. Eli can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's specific language within the building code that governs how much room you have to have within a tiny home, connections to plumbing.
Yeah, they're gonna have to meet the.
What about the construction of it?
Have to be engineered and have to pass the engineering.
Does it have to have all that?
It's regulated, yeah.
Yeah.
To withstand certain loads and.
But it prevents us from building a tree house.
But even like the storage buildings that I have over there, those
Living in it.
engineered.
Living in
They have to have an engineer stamp on them.
You have trees, you can build a tree house in.
They wouldn't qualify for a tiny home though.
Yeah,
No, just as.
I've seen people do it though.
Oh, they do it all the time.
Yeah,
that's what I was getting at.
yeah.
Yeah. They do.
You know, because a lot of people use like buildings.
Portable buildings.
They use those as tiny homes. That's the reason why I was asking about what
Mhm.
standards do we use.
Well, like, I'll speak to that. So if you use those that are, they look like, whatever.
Of sheds.
Yeah.
You can essentially bring it up to code because it doesn't have everything in it, right? It's not like finished out, so to speak. But you can finish it out, right? The siding's fine, the 2x4s that they're using is fine, the flooring is fine. But it still has to be finished out, right? And it uses the international codes to make sure that it's finished out.
Like a barn dominium.
About the foundation, what kind of foundation would it require? Do you have to put it on concrete or?
No, I mean, well, if we require it, I mean, then they would require it, right?
Right.
Code, it doesn't have to have concrete, right? It can be pure beam, right? Again, you can.
Strap it down,
You can make it,
down,
yeah.
anchor.
anchor it down.
So
Put it on footings, you know.
Much like a ready built.
shipping containers, Connex boxes, those kind of came up during our review too. Like to live in those or use them as buildings. Kind of like what Eli's saying, you can bring those up to code, and because state law prohibits us from mandating certain building materials, then actually pretty limited in terms of, well, it's metal, you know, I don't want it. Well, that's not something we can regulate if it meets code. Now we can require it to have like a pitched roof, or it's required to have a certain number of windows by building code if you wanted to have habitable rooms and call it a 3-bedroom structure. But from a material standpoint, if they meet code, then there's not as much that we can do as the city to prevent that.
But the deeds in those neighborhoods, and of course, they have to be enforced by neighbor, but those could kind of help prevent some of that.
They could, yeah. Maybe from a permitting standpoint, we can verify that there are no deed restrictions present on the property that would prevent that from happening.
But if Texas continues its economic prosperity, I can guarantee you the next session, they're going to come down hard on cities' ability to regulate building. They're just.
So then anybody can just build whatever they want, wherever they want?
Pretty much that's the way, because there's some markets
Yay.
right now that
Sundown.
the minimum price to build a home is 450 a square foot. And it's just, it's nuts. It's crazy. The builders have convinced the state that the city's regulations are the reason why home prices are out of control. So.
I hadn't heard that.
That's Butch's fault.
And in some ways, I'll say this ordinance will hopefully prepare us to be, if you like the term, future-proofed. I brought up SB 15 and SB 840. Those only apply to cities over 150,000, but originally they applied to cities 75,000 and more, and then some last minute changes bump that up to 150. If that were to take effect, then I'm not saying that this would be fully compliant with that, because it doesn't go that far of allowing apartments anywhere where there's commercial, but kind of getting back to that cumulative zoning, it's similar to that, mandating cumulative zoning within cities over a certain size, not industrial, but you have to allow, well, not in hazardous industrial, but you have to allow it in industrial and commercial. SB 15 requires 3,000 square foot lots anywhere within a city. I think it was 1,500 when it was originally introduced. So some aspects of this, if that is the road that we're going down, will anticipate that. So in a way, hopefully we're prepared for that if things continue in that direction. I want to move on to number 3, just because this is another discussion we were hoping to have. So we introduced at the previous workshops the concepts of a zoning overlay, and the issues that we're hoping to respond to is relative lack of design consistency. As someone mentioned, you have a smaller building next to a larger building, or you have differences in setback. You've got corridors that could maybe use a stronger identity, certainly higher utilization, more activity, and then identifying areas that have some historic or cultural significance. So we've identified 3 of those corridors, and we're not presenting standards tonight. We're just presenting the boundaries, the proposed boundaries of these districts. At the following workshop, we'll hope to cover more of those standards and have a follow-up conversation to some of the things we've discussed tonight. But in general, an overlay would regulate the building form or placement. So some of those things we can still regulate under zoning, which is where on the lot the building can be, how much of the lot it can take up. Instead of calling these setbacks, we might call them build to lines, where you have to build to a certain point on the property, usually a few feet back from a sidewalk or up to a sidewalk to get that urban edge that you usually see in downtown. Building height, where the parking is located and where the primary access to the lot is located. Where the building entrance is oriented toward the main street or toward the back. And then making sure that we have a consistent streetscape. So really those first 4 contribute to that number 5, and the city takes additional steps to ensure that there's a cohesive character along those streets by consistent landscaping and benches and sidewalks. So this is aligning the public side of that with the private side. So the first of our overlays would be the central core. It's kind of downtown plus because it extends over to the College Street corridor. It also aligns with Avenue H and then goes a little bit further west. So this is intended to align with the recommendations of the Downtown Comprehensive Plan. It identifies and really associates from a zoning standpoint that area of the city that's called out in the downtown plan. And then it ensures or at least requires that new development is compatible with what you see currently in the existing downtown. There's a good framework already within downtown. So from a zoning standpoint, we want to make sure that new development and redevelopment matches that. So that runs east up to our College Street overlay, which runs from 114 down to the college. Same concepts, same purpose really behind the central core that we see on College Street. It's also intended to promote walkability, because walkability is not just about having a sidewalk that I can use. It's about having interesting things going on both sides of the street that I might want to walk to. Encouraging students who are at South Plains to utilize that corridor and then connecting over to downtown. So again, these are largely talking about how buildings are built and how they look, there's some aspects of use that sometimes get worked into overlays. So for instance, if, you want to have a gas station, typically you'd have it by right within a normal commercial district, but within an overlay, you might have it by specific use permit. Or you might say a gas station can't go into an overlay because it doesn't contribute to the character. We like gas stations, we need gas stations, but maybe not here, maybe along 114. We're not proposing an overlay along 114 because that's
that change
corridor.
It changed like down College Avenue, or that zone, that B1 or B2, what is B2 is one block off each side. Does that try to change that down to just that alley?
It only runs, half a block one way.
Because I know that if we restrict that down to just that shallow of a lot of those businesses that have been looking have been needing deeper lots and have bought a couple of residents behind that.
It's happened multiple times already.
Yeah, so if we get it where it's very, very shallow lots there, we're gonna zone out lots of, I say lots, we're gonna zone out some businesses that potentially would want there that needs a little bit bigger footprint than what that allows, because that just.
So much of our growth now is if you're going to build on College, you're going to have to buy something and knock it down and potentially buy the home behind it.
So you're saying keep that first block on both sides?
I would, but now I don't know. I mean, is there a con to that? I know those are residential lots, but when they bought those houses, they knew that was a commercial district.
Quick Lanes is a prime example.
Perfect example for that.
It happened. It's built.
And did they buy up a couple residential lots to
A
that?
lot of old convenience store and then one or two homes that set back to the west of it and now have a commercial dwelling that runs deeper west.
So this is the purpose of having this conversation, is
Sure.
to see, is this the appropriate dimensions of the overlay? So a couple of things we could do. I mean, we could flare out the overlay so that it goes at least a couple lots deep. There's also language we can write in that says this is the base dimensions of the overlay. But if you're going to replat a lot that's partially within the overlay, then the entire thing is now in the overlay. So if you plat 6 lots deep, then that whole thing becomes overlay.
And I'm thinking on College Avenue, all the way to the next street is been a B2 district. Even though this is that overlay, would that still allow that to be a B2 so that you would have to get all of that redone, if a business wanted to do that? And then we could just, if we had the language, if it was a congruent lot, it would just slide right into that.
I think that's the benefit of having it the way that it's shown.
This is mainly about the frontage.
Yes.
About what it looks like across the front is what this overlay is doing.
Yes.
It doesn't really change that zone.
So you're right. And I think that would be the benefit of the way that it's drawn now, is that if you're just buying one of those residential lots, you're not affected by the overlay. There's not a question of what you have to do to comply with that or not. So it's case by case.
Michael, how would this overlay affect the residential home in the middle of College Avenue that is to the left accompanied by commercial, to the right accompanied by commercial on a standard corner, that if someone big was going to come in and build, and that's what they were going to buy and build, how does it affect that one? They're most certainly going to go west.
If it stayed residential, it would be grandfathered in as long as it's a residential lot.
Yes.
But if
Middle
someone
of
put the
College,
business
we have a
in,
prime location that has a home. Never sold.
sale, y'all.
I do
In the
know
Magic
it
Chicken
is for
place
sale
today?
already. It's listed, but
It might be the perfect spot. We need it to be ready.
the lot right next to it that had the taco truck on it, that guy is willing to sell, from what I've been told, to go with it. But that snow cone one may not.
It's always.
And I mean, there's a house
We
right
just
behind
need,
it.
I don't want to restrict her out of that area. We need that.
That home,
Needs to be in the overlay. But you're
Okay.
yeah, oh, for sure.
They want to sell that. They have it listed at $539.
from looking at the map,
I think that
have we got it?
if it doesn't change that's still a B2 district. And if a business buys that and they're congruent, that's great. But like you said, I don't want to put an undue burden on that house just because they're there, that all of a sudden, well, wait a minute, now I've got to put what kind of tree in my front yard and I've got to do this. I don't want to put the regulation on.
Only if you're doing new construction. Yeah. If they stay in that house and nothing ever happens to it, then
A lot of that's rental property.
they are.
And the homes that are further down south on College. For sure.
Do we need to carve them out or keep?
No, they're just
Oh.
smaller, older homes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do anything to their detriment.
How many houses are there? Because that stops right at, well.
How many are there?
right
Like
there
four?
behind the house.
Right? You did that one, then there's that blue one that they're rehabbing. There's maybe 3 or 4 there.
There?
And then the Catholic church is.
And then,
one on the
right,
corner.
right.
Mhm.
4 or 5,
Yes,
something.
number there.
If we continue it further south, are we getting into school owned property?
No, there's not. I mean, you could go around that curve and.
Yeah,
really
no.
not hurt anything. You could take it all the way around to the red light at 303 as far as that overlay. I don't think there would be that much of a problem.
There's Subway there and then there's a vacant lot. A house was taken out of there. Maybe somebody trying to sell that as more commercial. It
There's
just
probably
didn't
like 2
take
lots
off.
right there, right?
Right?
Between Subway and that other house is 2 or 3
That
lots.
guy bought it. He's going to build another Subway there.
3 or 4.
Someday.
Franchisee owns it, not the guy that owns it.
Wish you would.
So he's gonna build a bigger
That's
Do we want to extend it to go
one down.
further?
I mean, we don't need 2.
Before COVID, they had plans that they were going
Right?
to build.
I wish they
They were
would.
going to knock the Subway. Well, this is before they even shut the Subway at Walmart. They were going to keep that one open.
That franchisee bought that. He was going to build his own building and tell the guy that owned that building that he's leasing it from.
And then COVID hit, then they backed out.
I don't know what you do as you go around the curve. I mean, that's interesting.
As you get into the school on the south side, pretty quick back there. There's all of that across there. Then
Isn't there still that?
But you
land
have the
available
water
behind
place there that is
Straps?
commercial.
It's like a triangle behind Straps.
It's for Bill again.
That's what I thought.
A general principle that we're trying to follow is that there be similar standards that apply to both sides of the street. So you'll see that also come up in the Avenue H, kind of the way we drew that. And there's some exceptions, generally if something applies to one side of the street, it would apply to the other. So we try to get those going through the middle of blocks rather than the side it applies, the side it doesn't.
Yeah, because then you get into residential on down. Once you get around that curve, and
Yes.
it becomes Club View past.
Yes.
Yeah,
You get
Which
into.
is residential.
right.
So it probably needs to stop pretty close to that.
Half of these residential on the other side.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Avenue H. Then you got Downtown Square right in the middle. So this again goes from 114 down to the lake. And then you got the central core in the middle there, so that we just looked at. So again, we don't have standards written for this yet. We have some in mind. We wanted to make sure we're getting the boundaries correct first. But this is generally an area that when we went block by block and looked and made sure, okay, what are we potentially going to make non-conforming, if we introduce an overlay into this area. So that kind of guided the thinking there, but
H is odd. In the sense of, I mean, industrial to commercial to it's old and interesting.
yeah. Kind of reminds me a little bit of those like old industrial areas of like
Yes.
New York City that are now trendy, and you never would have thought it's an old warehouse. And now
Showers would be trendy.
there's something going on in it.
We tore down our trendy.
Yeah.
Does generally look okay. I mean, definitely not the last bite of the apple. We'll come back with standards so that we can kind of visualize it a little bit more. And it's probably worth mentioning where we didn't put an overlay. So we didn't put one along 114, except where it intersects with Avenue H in College, just because you have the railroad track there that's running parallel, and it's a little bit more of a mixture, and it's really intended to be highway oriented. So we didn't want to completely box out uses that do have a big parking lot in the front, and they are big box stores and have gas pumps, and still give them a place where they can easily go. So we've had a lot of conversation about housing. So I don't know that we need to spend too much more time with this, but this is just kind of some of our issues that we identified. So we covered a lot of these within our previous conversation. So this is just kind of looking a little bit more specifically about the different housing types that kind of run the spectrum from detached single family up to your larger apartment complexes. we spent a lot of time talking about SF1 and SF2. We have introduced some language that would allow for accessory dwelling units, so a separate dwelling unit next to or behind a single family house.
Mother-in-law suite.
Mother-in-law suite, yeah. So that's something when we were looking at the city of Canyon, for instance, since we're talking about Canyon, that their recent zoning ordinance opened that up so that ADUs would be allowed essentially within any single family or duplex zoning district.
Do we have any of that currently?
We have one on the market currently that's in, what did I say, 15th Street?
Okay,
If you
yes,
have
yes, I've seen some of that.
a back.
The west side of
Oh, it's on
town.
Austin. I don't know what 15th Street.
Not to go back to the legislation talk, because we're trying to all take a break from that, I think, but there were 3 separate bills filed. I was on the APA Housing Committee this last session, and there were 3 separate bills filed that would have allowed ADUs by right anywhere. None of them passed because they weren't backed by the right people, but that indicates there's strong support for just saying you have to allow ADUs everywhere. So again, potentially getting ahead of the game with this, maybe introducing some appropriate standards. Parking, additional parking space for an ADU has to be similar to the house, has to be behind the house and smaller than the house. So those are basic standards for accessory dwelling units. Have to be on the same lot.
Have to be a bigger lot? I mean,
Is this where they tried to pull at the heartstrings and started calling them granny flats?
They did call them granny flats, yeah.
I see some of our really deep lots.
Mother-in-law that's more, and there'll be a rental unit or something to them.
Yeah, yeah.
And like there's a few.
1 or 2 in the country club, I remember.
You know, remember when Tracy Jenkins had that house over there off of H, the next block over? I mean, not H, off of College. She had one and redone it. It had a
Okay,
little house out back.
right.
So are we generally okay with the idea of ADUs as long as they're on the same lot? Usually they're required to have the same utility meter, the same electrical, same water.
Why would we not want them to have different water meter?
It can get expensive, just kind of generally speaking, because these are usually homeowners. Sometimes they're, institutional investors, but often they're homeowners. So requiring a separate meter tap, and I don't know what the meter fees are here, but usually that's a good chunk of the expense.
When you ask for separate utilities, then it becomes more of a rental property.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's an ADU everything's tied to the main structure, it kind of makes that a little bit difficult.
You okay with that, Eli?
Yeah, the only thing that we require is the sewer has to have its own. But the water and the electricity, that can be shared.
Or it could be separate if they wanted that, if it wasn't
I
rent.
see the idea of having it as the same one to kind of keep it from being so much a rental unit.
Yeah.
So we can put a travel trailer in the back and call it good?
No.
They're single family residents. They're single family residents, so it can't really be another. This is basically a family.
Yeah, think what they're doing now.
Suite or someone that's a live-in nurse that needs a place to stay in. I mean,
Could be a college student.
right.
Yeah.
A guest house though.
Could it be a tiny home?
It's not saying, right?
I mean, technically it is. It is a tiny home.
Basically what it is.
Hang on to your hat. The next session,
Ones I'm thinking of here in town, there's one in the country club, like off of, I don't remember what street. I had a friend that lived in it now. It was a tiny little efficiency. Had the same exterior brick as the home, and it was well done. It was on the side street. There was parking. There was honestly nothing wrong with it.
I thought we was trying to get away from that at one time. We was building stuff in the backyard and
Yeah, I don't know if we want a bunch of them, but I did forget about this one.
I don't think, honestly,
If it becomes state law, then
we're not going to have a choice. It's going to pass.
Can't fit one in my backyard.
So would it just be new construction, or they could put it in existing?
They could put it where Where
Will it count as this, is the one accessory building that you can have on the lot, or would it be an exception to have?
some of the, and correct me because you were watching this closer to me, but some of the stuff I read, they're by right. Wherever they
And
want
it's your land, you can do what you want with it.
land, you can do what you want.
They were all written a little bit differently, but generally speaking, if it depends on how you regulate accessory structures too, because you might say you can only have one building, or you can have two buildings, or you might say you can only cover so much of the lot with accessory buildings.
So much square footage.
But essentially, this would have preempted cities from finding workarounds to not allow them.
And in some ways, some cities started kind of agreeing to this, partially because Senator Bettencourt in Houston was trying to get legislation that no residential lot could be bigger than 1,400 square feet.
Yeah, and then it went up to 3,000. Yeah.
They seem to think if we have smaller lots, then every house becomes affordable. And it's crazy, but there will be something, I almost guarantee the next session will pass that allows these by right, and you're going to see a really weird hodgepodge occur.
On the west part of town, when those lots are so deep, man, I mean, great use of space. There's room for parking back there. There's room for everything.
A good opportunity for cities to get some quality standards back that were taken away. Is some of the things you were mentioning, Mayor, about the brick was the same and it looked the same. Those are the kind of standards that if we want to open it up to ADUs, that's what delivers quality. You know,
These were built.
Size is a factor, but the way it's designed, the way it's built plays a big role too.
And when you have those standards, it stops someone from bringing in a RV or whatever.
Yeah.
It says, I'm just going to build some fake walls around it. Here we go.
Yeah.
Goodness.
So we've already covered this, the manufactured home district. There's also language that prohibits any permanent or RV or trailer use as a home. So we've worked that language in there so that it's only a temporary use. I did want to cover the public outreach piece just because that's been brought up a couple of times. So, in speaking with staff, the plan right now is that as we draft the ordinance, it get posted online so that there's access to the public. We can certainly support on creation of any communication materials to the public that communicates that the ordinance is available for review. This is what we're doing. State law requires us to notify anyone whose property might become non-conforming. So at some point, we will have to send out that scary mailer or postcard. So this will help kind of lay the groundwork for some of that so that it's not the first time people are seeing this. So that's our plan right now. There's additional options we could explore, but kind of within what we're doing right now, we're planning to put it online as we move towards kind of a discussion draft of the whole ordinance. So we are working on the last module 3, that'll be submitted to staff this month. So we'll look at that internally at our next workshop. We'll intend to have a draft of that for y'all to review, similar to the draft of module 1. So we'll cover those pieces of the ordinance. These are some pretty big ticket items that we've wanted to take up a lot of bandwidth on with this ordinance. So some of the things that we talked about tonight, we'll come back with some changes that we can discuss at our next workshop, with the goal of having a full draft as we get towards the holidays. Any other questions? Appreciate y'all's time tonight. Kept you up late.
It's not read with the whole thing. We stopped part of the thing.
You said you wanted to go page by page. I get a revolt.
And looking forward, there was one in there I saw on like RV parking for 48 hours. Know if that's
That's just for like unloading.
Sure, I know, I get that, but like, I've got an RV, and I'm working all week long, if I go get it this weekend, because we're going on a trip next weekend, just 2 days, maybe not even enough time to get it cleaned up, spruced up, loaded up, ready to go. To me, I think 40 hours is a little short. But we haven't, I guess that's further discussion at our next.
Larry, the cable guy says, get her done.
That's what I'm thinking.
What do normal communities, or other communities, what's there?
We're not normal. It's not normal.
Other communities, similar size, what is their normal, RV standards?
Now that's a good question.
Is that-
Probably somewhere between is week.
I think, didn't quote me, but
Oh, a week. Okay. Yeah.
Mayor, I think you're gonna find them all over the board. There's
I
some
agree.
cities that don't allow them at all.
Yeah.
You've got X amount of time to bring it in, get it unloaded. And if you're gonna clean it up, you go to the RV park where you're storing it or things like.
And as far as enforcing that, that's up to the neighbors to call it in to zoning and zoning to go for, right? Just-
Gotta call it in.
Okay.
It's just like up in my neighborhood, there's a guy down there who parks his RV right in front of his house. Nobody's living in it, he just parks it there.
And it stays there, and I know we've got to get away from that.
Yeah.
And it's just for 48 hours, you can hook it up, drive it around for 30 minutes and park it back again.
No, sir.
Continuous hours at a time.
That is continuous. Try that in a parking meter. They will. You people on Tech Drive are just.
Somewhere between 48 hours and a week.
Yeah.
I heard. Okay.
I don't know what's right.
Make it Tech Drive is 12 hours or less.
Yeah, we'll do a tech drive overlay.
That's what we're gonna do.
You have any other business? Okay,
Much.
thank you so much for your time. And with that, we are adjourned.